Good evening, everyone, and especially for those of you who are watching this live or later on LinkedIn. Welcome. This is my first ever LinkedIn Live, and this is a test, so I hope that it works. But for everyone else who is joining in, who has been on one of these live streams before, whether you're joining in live or later, welcome. And you know the drill. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I'll get to them. So today is actually my first live stream after the closing remarks of the inaugural C3EB Summit, or the Culturally Competent Conversations for Equity and Belongingness Summit, that completed on August 29th. And I did the closing remarks the following Monday, and then I decided to take a long break. But I'm so thrilled to say that we had a reach of over 17,000 people with the inaugural summit. So it was beyond amazing. Hi, Ronnie. Thank you so much for joining in. So what I wanted to talk about today is really a matter of, I wanted to share some insights that I gained after the summit was done, when I decided to take a break and process, reflect, introspect, as I went through yet another metamorphosis. And that's the interesting thing about human beings, right? Unlike butterflies, we have never-ending transformations. We have never-ending metamorphoses. And for a large part, like I said in my post, the universe is constantly expanding. Life is constantly changing. So why wouldn't we change, adapt, and evolve with everything changing around us? So that was a lot of what I went through. And I wanted to share some insights and perspectives about that, just in case it helps anybody. Now, before I get into that in the context of why all of this came about, it actually came about because of a BuzzFeed article, which I'm going to get into that soon, because that was a really interesting story. Before I get into that, starting next week, actually, our lives are going to be Monday and Friday afternoons at noon. And this is because of some of the changes I've made to my schedule and my working hours. But starting next week, we are going to follow a schedule on Mondays and Fridays. And I'm going to be bringing in experts. I'm going to be sharing my insights, any tips or tricks that I've learned along the way. And that'll make sense by the end of this. But starting next week, our schedule is going to change. But today, I wanted to talk to you about the real first step for anything or everything in our lives. Because again, it happened through this process of transformation, reflection, introspection, all of that I went through after the summit, my latest metamorphosis. And it was very interesting for me that today I read this article. It was a BuzzFeed article. It was a very, very well-written article. So as I'm referencing this article, I definitely don't want people to think I'm talking negatively about it or judging it. That's not what I'm doing at all. But as you're going to see, I'm going to lead with the bottom line here. What this article made me realize is how disconnected all of our lives have become from ourselves. And that really is the first real step to anything and everything, especially on a daily basis, because every single day that we wake up, our first moments are us starting our first chapter of that day, and also the rest of our lives from that day moving forward. And if we are disconnected with ourselves, what are we focused on? Right now, and I am going to get to that BuzzFeed article, I promise, because this BuzzFeed article is so interesting. And if I am able to credit it, I'm still waiting for permission. I will put that in the comments after this is done. But until that happens, all of this, everything I'm talking about, this transformation, this idea of our first moments being our first step for our everyday and the rest of our lives, and how we need to establish those. It came about because when we think about strategy and process right now, what is the first thing that any entrepreneur, any consultant, anybody starting a new project or a new chapter in their life does right now? That's a rhetorical question, and I'm going to give away the answer. We assess the status quo. We do a needs assessment. We look at where we are, and we look at where we want to go, and we map out the roadmap or the strategy, right? We operationalize everything that we can. We systematize everything that we can, and we automate everything that we can, even though we're not built for automation on a very human level. We're human beings. We have a heart and a mind to take care of. And most often, the heart wants what it wants. The reason I bring that up is the heart wants what it wants, but the brain looks at all of these messages, right? All of these messages out there, all of these people succeeding, all of these people doing more than what we think we ought to be doing. And then we start comparing. So really, the first steps that we take into any chapter in our life operationally is based on comparisons and somebody else's best practices instead of coming from within us. And instead of from coming from where we are in the moment that we are, right? Let me give you a really concrete example with that BuzzFeed article now. I know that was all abstract. So I read this BuzzFeed article today, and it was a great article. It was a really powerful, inspiring, amazing article about a woman entrepreneur. This woman entrepreneur had lost her job because of COVID-19. And, since that very first kind of shutdown and everything that happened in the United States. And this is somebody who is in the United States. So this person had a 9-to-5 job, and they lost their job because of COVID-19. And this BuzzFeed article was all about how now, literally between March/April of 2020 to September, October of 2020, this person not only lost their 9-to-5 job, but they became a 6-figure earning entrepreneur, right? And so when anybody in that situation, that the hook is, oh my gosh, my life was horrible. I lost my job. I lost my source of income and my employment, right? Anybody that can resonate with that on an emotional level, anybody that's been displaced, all of the millions of people who have lost their jobs in the United States and all across the world as well, they would resonate with that emotional hook of, I lost my job because of COVID-19. And on top of that, this was somebody who was a single working mother taking care of multiple children. So here was somebody who had multiple dependents who lost their job because of COVID-19. And all of a sudden, you're seeing this really feel-good story about how they, by the end of all of this, before the end of 2020, they are now earning 6 figures, taking care of their children, thriving, making more money than they know what to do with. And now they're saying, hey, I'm able to help, which is absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad they're able to help. Here's the caveat that the headline does not tell you about, that you really have to pay attention to what was in between the lines in the article, even, that this was this person's reality. By the time this person lost their job because of COVID, They had already had a successful side hustle, a social media following of over or something nearly 100,000 people, and they had already monetized that through collaborations and partnerships. Now, how many unemployed people's reality is that? So it's great that the first step of this person's story was to say, I decided to stop worrying about my corporate job and I decided to follow my passions. They had already monetized their passions. For those of us, for a lot of us, that is not our reality. We don't have side hustles. We don't have these extra dreams we've worked on through no fault of our own. For those of us who have worked on them, yay. And for those of us who haven't, yay. That's not a judgment at all. We have lived our lives in the best ways possible for us. No doubt about that. But the reason I bring up this BuzzFeed article is what then is the real first step? Because all this person had to do was say, I'm unemployed. Oh, look, I have another stream of income. I just haven't tapped into it, but I've already built it. So transferring to it is a little bit of implementation, but not a lot. As opposed to those of us who are in situations where we didn't want to lose our 9 to 5, where we only have the one thing we're doing, where we have ignored our inner fire, our purpose. As one of my dear friends and coaches, Zanzibar Vermilio, calls it, our exquisite purpose, our true unique contribution and value. We've not paid attention to any of that, so we don't have a sense of any of that. For us, the real first step, if that's you, your real first step is not a needs assessment of a status quo versus where I need to be and building a strategic roadmap. Your first step is actually believing in you, believing in yourself, investing in yourself, trusting yourself, trusting your heart of what you're feeling being called to do, right? Because operations are important, absolutely. But is your heart in it? Is your soul in it? Have you checked in terms of who you are trying to be versus who you are being? And these may sound very metaphysical, but they're very real, because that's where I see the disconnect happening. I see so many people, including myself recently, who lose sight of their inner fire, who lose sight of their purpose, who lean too far into heart or mind or soul without balancing the three, who pay more attention to how things ought to be. If I have to be a good leader, I have to be X, Y, and Z. I have to be more masculine. I have to lean into my feminine. I have to take on all of these labels, and I have to have thoughts that are going to go viral. And I have to share them in the perfect way that hit my target audience. And I have to have these conversion numbers. And I have to make this much money for my business. I have to connect with X number of leaders this week. I have to put my point across. But what does your soul want? Where is your heart? Where are your heart, mind, and soul intersecting and aligning? That really is the first step of everything, right? And anything is to check in with yourself and ask yourself, what is your big why? What is your big why that you want this raise? What is your big why that you want to increase your impact? What is your big why that you want 5 more clients? What is your big why that you want to be an ally? What does allyship even mean to you? What does leadership even mean to you? And in following all of these other blog posts, how-tos, best practices, case studies, and all of this other stuff, where is your voice being included even in your own head? Forget the outside. Where is it in your own head? Is it only coming in as an inner critic? Or is it only coming in as your internal punching bag that you argue against? Those are important questions, right? Because those questions help you balance your energy. And for those who are into, who understand energy work, I'm talking about balancing energy. For those who think that it's too woo-woo, I'm literally talking about how much of what you're focusing on is draining you versus motivating you. That's all it is. Because when we do something that our heart and our soul truly don't want us to do, it drains us. It makes it feel like work. It makes it feel like a chore. But when our heart, mind, and soul are synchronized, it's fun. It energizes us, right? Time just flies by, and all of a sudden 12 hours later you're like, man, I got so much stuff done, and I didn't even realize the time, right? That's what I'm talking about with the energy balance. The real first step to everything. Where is your energy? Where does it want to be? And how are you fighting against that just because of some status quo that you've been taught or conditioned to believe in? Finally, the reason I'm bringing up all of this is because it brings up the point of uncertainty and certainty, right? Ultimately, that's what it boils down to: uncertainty and certainty. As human beings, we try to be very certain and we try to minimize uncertainty. But here's the real truth of all of our lives, right? Uncertainty is certain. Uncertainty always has uncertainty built into it. And again, I don't mean to get philosophical. Think about hard data. Think about data science. I'm coming at this from a perspective of a scientist. This is my background. As a scientist, I know I can't be 100% confident in anything. I know hypotheses are either nullified or disproven. I know theories can evolve, and parts of theories can be disproven and developed. All of that, hard data, hard science, always has uncertainty built into it, right? Even in the most powerfully predictive analytics, statistics, methods, healthcare practices, no doctor is going to tell you, yes, I'm 100% sure you're going to survive this. Because there's always the uncertainty of the general anesthesia, right? No statistician's going to say, this is 100% confident. It's always 95% confidence intervals, ranges. Because everything has ranges in life, right? Everything has confidence intervals, caveats, contingencies. And what that means really is that uncertainty is certain, right? So if nothing is certain except uncertainty, then certainty is a myth. And if certainty is a myth, does uncertainty even have a meaning in our lives as a whole? When we say, I say all of that to say, when we say we are uncertain about something, what exactly are we saying? What exactly are we denying ourselves? Are we denying ourselves the real first step, which is realizing and acknowledging what our heart and soul want, as opposed to the stories that our brain makes up for us based on our perceptions. Again, all of this is, it may be high level, but I don't think so. This is how I think. I hope you enjoyed all of this. At the end of the day, I'm going to bring it back to what I said initially when I started this whole rabbit hole. And that's that the first real step to everything is confidence in yourself, belief in yourself, believing that this change is something that you want, and understanding, truly understanding and clarifying why this change is important to you right now as you're making it. In your mind, in your heart, and in your soul. When those align, that's when you reclaim your inner fire. That's when you reclaim your purpose. And that's when you blow your own mind, as I found out. So I have so much more to say on this, but thank you so much for joining in on this first live stream since the summit and this first new platform. We are moving to Mondays and Fridays at noon Eastern Standard Time. So I will see you starting on Monday, not tomorrow, but starting on Monday. And really, first step to anything or everything, start believing in yourself. Start believing that even if you are stuck in a rut, you are going to get yourself out of it. Not through external methods, but because you are capable. You are more than capable. And when you realize why this is important to you, you are going to strategize and operationalize it. More on that again in the future, but anytime you need any help in reclaiming your inner power, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's it for me, and I will see you next time. Bye.